the Travel Squad podcast.
We're four friends that grew up together in the same small town.
We followed each other to San Diego, and now we adventure the world together.
One passport stamp at a time.
We're here to share our travel stories and inspire you to go on your own adventures.
Even if it starts with your own backyard. I'm Jamal.
Brittanie,
Kim,
And I'm Zeina.
and we're the Travel Squad podcast.
so grab your tickets.
Your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And prepare for takeoff.
Hello, fellow travelers.
Hey.
Welcome to episode 26 of the Travel Squad podcast. Today we are taking you with us on a big bucket list trip, Africa.
Well, not all of us, because one of us didn't go.
Boo.
And who was that?
That was me, and so you've probably heard us talk about That's My Africa in some of our episodes, and what that's referring to is my biggest regret in life by not going on this trip.
We're going to be introducing you to new players here in the squad today, and it's Josh and Anna. And Josh is from our hometown of Woodland, California. Woodland in the house.
Woodlone.
And he grew up with Jamal, really, really good buddies. And Anna is his girlfriend, also from Northern California. And they came along with us for the ride. And this is Josh's first international trip ever. He got his passport for this trip.
Yes, he did.
TIA. This is Africa. That was our motto while we were on the trip. That was our NSOT, but TIA.
TIA.
It wasn't a true NSOT because unfortunately Kim wasn't with us. So we altered it in your honor to TIA.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Also, hashtag Tia. So on this African adventure, we visited 3 countries: South Africa, Swaziland, which was actually renamed to eSwatini, and Zimbabwe. It's also a little bonus that we did enter Zambian waters, but we didn't go to Zambia.
So this was such a long trip for them. I think it was about 14 days, right, in total?
Yeah.
So because they traveled so much and covered so much ground, we're actually going to break this up into our very first 2-part episode series.
Woo! Two-parter.
So let's start out with some tips for Africa since I didn't go and one day I would like to.
Well, the biggest tip I have is to go and don't make excuses for yourself.
I think this
Noted.
one's directed at you, Kim. I think so.
Hear that, people? Just go.
And why didn't you go, Kim?
I did not go because I think the trip cost around $5,000, right?
It did, yes.
Give or take a few. And at the time, I just saw that number and thought it was so big. And I don't know, it just built it up in my head to be too much to do. And in retrospect, I totally could have made it happen because it was a Gate1 trip. They let you make payments. They let you break it up. And I really could have made it happen. But, I got in my own head. So let this be a lesson to all of you listening that even though it may seem like an impossible amount, it actually probably is doable.
Well, it obviously was doable because 3 out of the 4 of us here are sitting here and have done it.
I know, it's funny because I also went on a trip during the time you guys were gone, so I totally could have gone.
So another tip that we have for you is this trip was such a long trip. It was 14 days long. And what we learned from this is we should not add on another trip before or after. And we did. We actually added on New York after this. And during that trip to New York, we learned we shouldn't have done that. It was such a long trip and combining the two wasn't the best idea.
And in case you're wondering, okay, Africa and New York, how did we get there? Well, we left from New York. We'll get more into that. And we landed on Thursday in New York. So rather than flying back, we thought we'll spend the weekend there. But yeah, like Brittanie said, if we could go back Thursday, we would just fly home rather than spend the weekend in New York.
Yeah, and we've always talked, and listening to past episodes, you've heard us say, if you have a layover, do something, try to extend the trip, which is good advice. And that's exactly what we did. I just think with the long flight time from the United States to Africa being such a long trip at 14 days, we learned that that's not a bad bad advice to do it, but just be cautious on such a long trip and such flight times. Maybe around, 7-10 days, it's more doable, but anything beyond that, it can be a little bit tiring and cumbersome.
If I was still 24 or 25, I would have been able to do it with no problems. But once you turn 30.
Once you turn 30.
Or if it's a shorter trip, like the Ecuador trip we're planning in September, it's only 8 days and we are adding on Austin to the end of that.
Correct.
Another tip that I have for everyone is that Africa can be cold at times. And what I was expecting was vast desert, dry weather, hot weather. And when we got to Cape Town, it was actually more green and cold than I expected it to be. And I didn't really pack accordingly. And so I learned very early on.
You didn't pack accordingly.
That Cape Town can be very cold. And at the time that we went, it was colder than San Diego.
Oh my gosh.
You got to think it's in the southern hemisphere, so it's a completely different season than what it is here in the northern hemisphere. In terms of landmass that's below the equator, it's like a very low percentage. So the majority of people are experiencing the same season, the same time of the year, but not when you're in South Africa. You're definitely different season. So got to really plan accordingly on that.
And then the next tip is to get malaria pills. It's highly recommended, and I think it's going to be on the CDC website, but just make sure you go to your doctor and get those malaria pills.
Yeah, we definitely did take the malaria pills. It's a good precaution to have it. I really don't feel like I ended up with a lot of bites, but our tour guide did tell us that we were about 2 to 3 weeks away from real heavy mosquito season. So we kind of missed it. If we were there a little bit later, it may have come more into play and I may have felt it was truly necessary. But if you're going to be going there, definitely take it as a precaution.
We also learned that the water was drinkable in every single place we went to except for St. Lucia. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to have to buy bottled water throughout the trip, and we really didn't need to because all of the water was so fresh and so clean, and it actually tasted really good and really refreshing.
Oh, cool.
I get delivered water jugs to my house, and the water in Africa was cleaner than the delivered bottled water that I get.
Wow.
Like it tasted so good.
Yeah, I mean, you could drink straight out the tap, no issues. The one place that Brittanie mentioned, St. Lucia, it is in South Africa. The reason why we couldn't drink there is the hotel we were staying at was redoing their well, and they hadn't really made sure that it wasn't contaminated at that point. But South Africa is ranked as one of the top 3 cleanest water sources in the world to come out the tap.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What else do you need to know?
Another good thing to know and just keep in mind when you travel to another country is they are using a different currency than your local one. So South Africa uses the South African rand. We also went to Swaziland, which is another country, and they have their own currency, but it's pegged at an even exchange rate to the South African rand. So we really didn't have to change money other than to South African rand. And right now the exchange rate, and when we went as well, is about $1 to 14 South African rands. And one thing that we always do, and I would just want to mention it again, we always take cash just in case we have to exchange cash for cash and local currency, but I always love to pull out of the ATM because it gives you a more even exchange rate, and you do have an ATM fee, but you can always ask your bank to waive it, which I usually do. So it's a good cost saving measure when exchanging currencies.
And when you can, we try to pay with our credit card, and we use a specific credit card that has no foreign transaction fees.
What credit card is that?
My main travel credit card is my Chase Sapphire Reserve. It's the one that I always use. It has no foreign transaction fees, gets me a lot of points and perks for travel. But before that, we used our Capital One credit card, and it's the Capital One Quicksilver credit card that gives you 1.5% cash back on every purchase, but that does have a no foreign transaction fee. So until we got that Chase card, we always used that one. And if anybody is a Costco member and has the Costco credit card, the Costco credit card offered by Citi also has no foreign transaction fees.
Nice. I remember, I think it was when you got that Capital One card. I think we were in Peru and you were all, no foreign transaction fee. And you were all hyped up on it.
I am hyped up about it because it gives you an even exchange rate. I don't have to use cash. I could put it on my card, get points. It's great. So I highly recommend to anybody when you travel, definitely try to use a credit card or even get a credit card that has no foreign transaction fees. It's going to save you a lot of money and you're going to earn points in the process.
And this segment is not sponsored by any of those banks that we mentioned.
Non-sponsored. I just love those credit cards. They've been in my wallet. Well, the Capital One's been in my wallet for quite a long time. It's actually my first credit card, and my Chase Sapphire Reserve is my new go-to travel credit card.
Nice.
There you go.
Do they speak English in South Africa?
Yes, they do. English is one of the official languages. They have many, but English is one of them, so you'll be able to get by real easy.
Oh, nice.
So let's get to the trip, guys.
Day 0, leaving San Diego. Tell me how you got there.
We flew from San Diego to Newark, which is in New Jersey. But as we talked about earlier in our New York episode, we talked about how Newark is actually very close to downtown New York. And so we flew there because it was cheap flights from Southwest. And we spent the night in New Jersey. And then we took a lift over to JFK to meet up with Josh and Anna.
Yeah, JFK is the major international airport in New York. And our tour through Gate 1 had a special leaving out of JFK. So we saved money by flying into Newark, New Jersey, spent the night there the day before, and just did the transfer. And it made a lot more sense that way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why we spent the night was the flight was leaving, I think, around like 5 in the afternoon. And you have to remember, we're coming from San Diego. We're 3 hours behind. So by the time we land in New York, it's just cutting it too close. So we needed to spend the night and spend the next day there in New York in order to catch our flight.
What was so funny about meeting Josh and Anna at the airport was that they aren't really experienced travelers like we are. So we all showed up with our one large checked luggage and our one backpack. And we arrived to the airport and we see them. And Josh has this big ass bag.
It was the biggest
was
duffel
like
bag you've ever seen.
Yeah. I didn't even know that they made a duffel bag.
It was a duffel bag.
But I could literally fit inside of it. You can fit a body inside of that duffel bag. It was so
It looked like he was
big.
rolling a dead body because it was legitimately a big giant duffel bag, but it had back wheel rollers, if I'm not mistaken, and he comes in with it. I'm just like, you could fit a whole barrel of oil and a dead body in that back thing. And I was like, my God, man, what a big, duffel bag you have. And then Anna was just so funny. She had 2 check-sized luggages plus her carry-on, etc. So they definitely.
And then she brought a backpack and a yoga mat, and I was like, "Are we moving to Africa, guys?"
But Josh's bag was really funny, and the entire tour group started to tease him whenever we would transfer to another airport and be like, "Oh, there's the body bag."
Okay, so then it's day 1 now, and you guys are in the JFK airport. What is the flight? How do you get to South Africa from JFK? Is it straight or?
No, unfortunately, there's not a straight flight. What we had to do was fly from JFK International in New York. We flew to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam, we had a direct flight at that point to Cape Town, South Africa.
How long were you in Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, not very long. I would say maybe about 3.5, 4 hours, if I remember correctly. It wasn't a very, very long
Not
layover.
long enough to
No,
go
but
out.
see, Josh, again, this was his first trip really off the continent. And he was excited to be in Amsterdam. He was like, oh, do you think we have enough time to go out and just kind of explore? And Brittanie and I have been to Amsterdam before. And I told him, I said, they do have a direct train from the airport that takes you to downtown Amsterdam, if you will. But there's just not enough time. By the time you get out of the airport, take the express train, you'll maybe have 30 minutes to do something before you come back. And it's just cutting it way, way too close. If we had more time, maybe.
Okay, so what did you do in the Amsterdam airport for 3 hours?
We ate.
We did. We had like a traditional English breakfast in the Amsterdam airport at one of the restaurants. And then we watched Anna do yoga in the terminal before our flight.
You guys didn't partake?
No, we did not. We didn't bring our mats.
We did not partake. We did not bring our mats, but it was really funny. The flight from JFK to Amsterdam is not very long. I mean, it's about a 7-hour flight, which is a long flight.
Yeah.
But if you're flying from coast to coast here in the United States, it's about equivalent, 5 hours. And this was going to be their longest flight from Amsterdam to Cape Town. I believe it was about 10 and a half, 11 hours of a flight. So they'd never been on a flight that long before.
I thought it was 12. In any case, it felt like it was a long flight.
It was a long flight, but not as long as the one coming back. If you guys want to reference the episode where we talked about how to survive a long haul flight, and I had my 16-hour flight back from Africa sitting next to the smelly lady. So So, I mean, that one was a lot longer. So this one was just warming them up for that return flight.
The weirdest thing about this flight is I feel like I've been all over the world, but I always travel west to east or east to west. So you're experiencing a time change. But in this case, Amsterdam had the same time zone as Cape Town. So you're just flying from north to south. I don't know. It's just weird. It's all on the same time zone. And I've never traveled someplace with the same time zone like that.
On such a long flight. you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, California, Sacramento to San Diego, same thing. But I mean, like, yeah, international.
So after the flight, day 2, we officially landed in Cape Town.
Cape Town.
Cape Town?
Cape Town.
We landed down
In Cape Town.
Dun, 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 dun.
When we landed, it was about 10:30 at night, so we really didn't get to do anything. Being that it was a Gate 1 tour, we did have the pickup from the airport, took us direct to the hotel. So that was really, really nice. We didn't have to, coordinate a taxi or anything like that or mass transportation. So I just want to reiterate how vital going certain places and doing a tour is in terms of the all-inclusiveness and what they provide.
Ease.
Yes, the ease. And especially, I just want to touch on this, going to Africa in terms of having to figure out what's a reputable safari company or transportation, since they don't really have like a big mass transportation. Africa in general is a good place to go and utilize a tour. Just want to throw that out there.
One of the interesting things when we landed in Cape Town was, of course, the ladies are headed off to the bathroom, you go pee, and then you come out to wash your hands, but there is no water. And it's not that they don't have water, they're in a drought. And because they are in a drought, they turned the water off. And so instead, they just have hand sanitizer on the wall where the sinks are, which is weird. I mean, I get it. They're trying to preserve
They
water.
were in a
but
severe drought.
Yeah.
It was going to be the largest city in the world to run out of water. So luckily, they're past that point now. But when we went, we were at the height of it. And I'm sure all of you probably remember in the news, at least hearing clip highlights of them talking about how South Africa, well, not South Africa, more specifically, Cape Town itself was going to run out of water. So all of the fountains that they had in the city, or even when you were in public spaces, like Zeina is saying, no running water. Yes, they had them for the toilets to flush, but in terms of washing hands, other things, they were really cutting back on water usage.
Well, I do want to say one thing. So let's say in the airport bathroom, there's 10 sinks. 9 out of 10 are turned off, and hand sanitizer is recommended to use instead. There is one sink that is left for running water, and I'm sure that's for if you, I don't want to be disgusting or anything, but you have bowel movement and you want to wash your hands.
I think that they've heard enough on this podcast to know that's not disgusting.
But I mean, I'm assuming that's what it's for. Like, if
Wait,
you pee, then
so there's no water in the bathrooms, but what about the shower?
there is water in the showers, but in every shower that we went into, there was a timer. And so they would recommend that when the timer runs out, you turn the water off.
They were recommending no more than a 3-minute shower. So they had, in our hotel when we got there, they had a little hourglass filled with sand, obviously a little plastic one, but it had a little suction cup stuck to the shower itself. And they had a big sign encouraging you, hey, please keep the shower within 3 minutes. They had the signs up telling you, please don't put your towel on the floor. A towel on the floor means you want a new one, help preserve our natural resources, keep
Reuse
your
your
towel,
towels.
etc.
And we're talking about public bathrooms, right? I mean, if you're in a hotel, they're not going to shut the water off, but like more so the public bathrooms. And then the other thing too is I bought Ofra's lipstick called Cape Town, and I wanted to wear it specifically for this trip because I was going to be in Cape Town, and they have a collection of lipsticks for pretty much all the big cities of the world. And Brittanie was super excited to wear it too.
Cape Town and Cape Town.
Yes.
Let me guess. Bright pink?
It is pink, but it's a little bit darker, and it's actually the exact same color as Kylie's Lip Kit Sprinkle. Yeah.
Fun facts.
Not my favorite color, but I had to wear it in Cape Town.
So day 3 was our first day of orientation with our tour guide. As we mentioned, we landed in Cape Town around 10:30 at night. So just to transfer to the hotel.
And it took about 45 to 60 minutes
Yeah.
to get from the airport to downtown Cape Town.
And then we went to bed, and then in the morning when we checked in, they said, oh, you're part of the Gate 1. Please be down in this conference room at a certain time for your orientation. And that's where we met with our tour guide, Sean.
Yes, Sean was our fearless leader for this trip. And
I heard a lot about
A
Sean.
lot about Sean. Sean was a great tour guide.
he was okay. No, I'm saying.
He has a really great voice.
He did. And wait, what did he say that Jamal imitated him so well on?
Oh, yeah. He did something like that.
Oh my God.
He had like you would ask him something and he'd be like, oh, yeah. I'm doing it no justice, but he had a really good way of saying it. Yeah.
Yes. So anyways, there we are in the orientation and they're calling out the names to make sure that everyone is there. So Jamal and Brittanie booked together. So they called Jamal and Brittanie's name and then me next. And so they say Zeina and I'm like, oh, I'm here. He gives me my stuff. And then next he says Kim. And all three of us, Jamal, Brittanie, and I, we go, because we got so excited. Like, what are the odds that the name Kim is going to be right after Zeina? And Sean looks at us and he says Kim. And we're like, no. Not us.
But we got so excited. We were like, did Kim surprise us and book and not tell us? And here she
That
is.
would have been so epic. If
It
I
would
did
have been
that.
epic.
Oh my goodness.
You would have had an epic time.
I missed you so much on the entire trip. Sorry, Britt.
It was a sign that you should have been there.
It was a sign that everything was going to be okay because there was at least one Kim on this trip.
Yes. But after the orientation, it maybe took 30 to 45 minutes, again, making sure everyone's there, talking about what we're going to be doing on the entire tour itself. But after that, we hit the ground running. And the first thing that we did that day was go to Table Mountain. And Table Mountain is a very famous, iconic place in Cape Town, South Africa. And it literally is a mountain that has a flat top, hence the name Table Mountain. You take a cable car to the top, gives you beautiful, beautiful panoramic views of the city. And it's also a South African national park.
And this is why I love Gate 1, because all of these places that we're going to, the price that we paid originally includes entrance to all of these places. So we did look up for you guys that to get to the top of Table Mountain via the cable car, the most expensive ride is 360 Rand round trip, which equates to about 25 US dollars. And we learned that they actually charge you more in the morning and less in the afternoon, probably due to the views, probably because in the afternoon it's more known for cloud coverage. And this was all included in our trip. And we got to the top and we had the best panoramic views of Cape Town and the surrounding area.
I also love Gate 1, not only because they include all of the tickets, but you don't have to go wait in line, get them, figure out how to get them, figure out where to get in. Like, it's all figured out for you.
Yeah, and since we had the tickets, we got to bypass the general line of people waiting to buy the tickets, then plus the line to get in. Since we had them in advance, we had a different queue that we got to go on. So we got to the cable cars, got to go to the top. But from the top, I mean, just amazing, amazing views of the city. You can see out into the Atlantic Ocean. At the top, there's a lot of plant life, animals, just as well. Unfortunately, no bigger animals. In the past, there used to be lions and leopards that used to be up there, but since, lots of the human activity and settlements in that area, they're no longer there. But there used to be lions, leopards. Very rarely will you maybe be able to see baboons in that area, not so much anymore. But other than that, there are going to be other animals you could see, not big game, but such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And any trip to Cape Town won't be complete unless you go to Table Mountain.
One of the things I would have really liked to do is to be able to walk up the mountain, not walk, but like hike up the mountain. That is something that you can do. And Josh and Anna took a second trip this past year to South Africa and they did hike up the mountain. And I think that's really cool.
But yeah, to the point of what you were saying about Josh and Anna, imagine this. They had so much fun on their trip that they booked another Gate 1 to go back to South Africa. This one was a shorter one that included just kind of Cape Town and a few surrounding areas. But they ended up going back in the 2019 year here, and they went back to Table Mountain and they went with the point to actually hike it up. So instead of taking the cable car, like Zeina said, they did a hike up.
They did an easy day and I missed out on it. Damn it.
I know.
Hey, we have to go back.
Yes,
I know.
we do.
I want to go back to Africa.
And you have
so
to go
bad.
back, and I have to go for the first time.
Yes.
It was such a beautiful view at the top. It was a bird's eye view of the city, of the beaches. I didn't realize that there was going to be so many beautiful beaches because we were on the South African peninsula.
Yeah, Cape Town is on a peninsula that sticks out on the western tip of the southern end of the African continent. So beautiful views of the bay, the ocean. I can't stress enough how beautiful it is at the top of Table Mountain.
And it's also possible to see Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. So
It's
lots
like
of
their
history
version
there.
of Alcatraz, I guess, a little island prison.
So when you get into the cable car to take you to the top, they're going to shove as many people as they can within the weight limit restriction, of course. But don't worry about where you are going to stand. You're going to get into a circular cable car. And as you're going up, it will spin you very, 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 very slowly.
Very,
to the top.
very slowly.
Extremely slow. But, that way, don't necessarily stress where you're going to sit, because you're going to get a view of 360 as you're going to the top very slowly.
Great memory, Zeina.
I don't remember them doing that, but I have no doubt that that's the case.
It went so slow you didn't even know it was happening.
But now that she says that, it rings a bell. At first she was saying it and I couldn't remember, but yeah, definitely. That is really cool when I think back about that. That is awesome. I've never been in a cable car that does anything like that.
So visiting Table Mountain really just started our adventure off right. And so from there, we headed out for our Cape Peninsula tour. And we had several stops along the way. We first stopped in a fishing village called Hout Bay, and it was so beautiful. Jamal, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a little fishing village on the peninsula of Cape Town going south, and just really beautiful classical settlement buildings. But more particularly, there is food and stuff to eat there, but being on the tour, we didn't stop at that point. But it is just a good lookout point to see the beautiful scenery. Like Brittanie said, sometimes if people thinking are Africa, they're thinking of the African bush or dry, arid, but just so much greenery that you wouldn't expect. And it's really, really beautiful out there. We also had a stop in Simonstown, and we visited the penguin colonies that they have at Boulder Beach. And if anybody's watched any nature documentaries, I'm sure you've probably seen them talk about the penguins that they have in South Africa. We think of penguins, we think of in Antarctica or somewhere cold, but there is a penguin colony on the beaches of South Africa. So we went to Boulder Beach and we got to see the penguins.
It's so surreal seeing penguins on a beach. Like, you're expecting to see them in the Arctic and snow, and here they are just chilling in the sun, just prancing on the sand in the water.
How cute.
Yeah, it was super cool to see. And I remember before we booked this trip, our friend Kasia, that we've referenced many times, she asked, because she was actually supposed to go on this trip and they couldn't go, would we be going to Boulder Beach? Because I want to see the penguins there. So it's a must-do on this South African adventure.
The cutest thing is when they're in a little group. Like, I remember at one point there were 3 penguins walking along together, one after another, and then they just one falls and then gets up. And then, it's so adorable.
So they do inhabit that Boulder Beach area that we are talking about. But what's really interesting about it is the penguins only started to inhabit that area around 1983 from just one breeding pair. And now there's about 3,000 birds, but they are deemed endangered and on the verge of extinction. So it is a protected area, so you do have to pay to go see them, but the money that you do pay, which is 76 Rand, equivalent to about $5, goes into preservation of the area, of the species. But again, the fact that it was through Gate 1, that was included with our tour, but if you go by yourself, you will have to pay to go to the beach and see the penguins.
And you aren't on the beach with the penguins. You are on a built-up walkway, so you can go to a viewing area, but you're not on the beach.
About how far away are the penguins from the viewing area?
Oh, they're really close because it's a built-up deck, so they could even walk under the
underneath.
deck. Yeah.
So they're right on the sides, and they can go underneath, but you can't go out and touch them.
Do they make noises?
Oh, yes, they do. They used to be called jackass penguins because of the way that they would bray, the noise that they would make.
Can you do that for us,
I
Jamal?
can't make that noise. I don't want to attempt to make that noise, but they used to be called jackass penguins because of the noise that they do make. I have videos, so when this episode's out, bam, we got some penguin videos to see.
And this is where we did stop for lunch. Right outside of the beach, we did go to a restaurant, and this was included with our tour.
And it was at a really nice, fancy restaurant. Again, you're on the water, so it kind of has a bayfront,
Nautical feel.
Unfortunately, well, maybe this would be the highlight for you, Kim.
God damn it.
Because, wine was included with your lunch, and It was seafood, so I don't know. Well,
okay.
they did have a non-seafood option, but the seafood that we actually had was delicious. But since we were on a tour, again, there was about 30 people. One of the people who was on the tour, we nicknamed her Jersey because she was from New Jersey. And she sat at the table with us, and lunch included our main entree, our drink, and a little bit of dessert. And it was so funny. I'll never forget this. Josh was with us, obviously sitting at the table. And when Jersey's dessert came out, she said, "Do any of you guys want the dessert?" She's like, "I'm not a sweet person." And then Josh just goes, "Boo," like to her face, like as a joke, like, "What do you mean boo? Like you don't want dessert?"
I think he got in her face too.
Yeah, but he was doing it as a joke. But she was really, I mean, she took
and then
it.
Did he eat the dessert?
Oh yeah, she gave it to us. But you know, it's so funny. It didn't discourage her because she did like us. Because a lot of times when there was something of the meal that she didn't want, even if she wasn't sitting at the table later on in the tour, she would come to us and say, "Do you guys want the dessert? Do you want this?"
I don't do that.
I don't think she understood Josh's personality yet at that point to not take it offensively. But then as it went on, you know, he just was like, "Boo! Like, what are you talking about? You don't want dessert?"
Yeah. I mean, there were other places too where she wouldn't be sitting at our table and the dessert's automatically included, and she would ask us, "What dessert do you want me to choose?" Because she was just under the assumption
sweet.
that
Yeah, we really, really liked her. She was so nice.
Did she partake in the wine? Did she ever kick you guys down any wine?
She did not because she
liked wine.
she liked her alcohol.
We would have been friends.
Yes, you probably would have. She liked her alcohol a lot.
So from lunch, we're all filled up now, but we are continuing our Cape Peninsula tour, and we stopped at the Cape of Good Hope Nature Reserve. And this is so famous because it has so much flora and fauna. There's so many different acres. I think it was like 17,000 acres.
Were there baboons?
They are in the area, but we didn't see any at that point, unfortunately. But yes, there are baboons there. They even have signs say, "Beware of the baboons."
Other things you can see are like zebras, bonobos, and
What's a bonobok?
I would say it's like a type of elk, deer. It's like a venison type animal, if you will. Yeah, and it's really nice out there. And the Cape of Good Hope is a very famous spot specifically for photos because they do have the sign that says this is the southwesternmost point of the African continent. So they have it showing the coordinates. You could take photos of it, etc. But they do have a lighthouse at the top, and they do have a little tram that you could take to the top, or you could do the hike. Knowing Brittanie, we took the easy day and we ended up doing the hike up, but it's just so beautiful. You're at the very southern end of the continent. There's a more southern point in the middle, but this is the famous spot where everybody goes to say, like, I'm at the very tip of South Africa or the African continent. So at the top by the lighthouse, they do have a post, and it will have signs that say, "Oh, Rio de Janeiro, so many kilometers, New York, so many kilometers," with the arrows pointing in different directions. So really, really cool, but just such beautiful panoramic sights to see. And what's really incredible is you're up there and you can really get a sense of how clear the water is in that area. I mean, you see lots of bright blues, different shades of turquoise.
Like Caribbean water?
Yeah, and then you go further out and then you could see that it gets darker, but I wasn't really expecting to see just that different color contrast of the water from there. So beautiful.
I imagine it being much like the southmost point in Key West, Florida.
It is
That's like a photo spot.
Yeah, it is like that, but it's a lot cooler than that because I've been there and it's not as cool as this one in South Africa.
yeah, because the lighthouse is on like a cliff edge. So when you look down, you're looking down at like sheer cliff onto a beach. And
Like how far down?
I don't really know, at least over 500 feet for sure, if not
okay.
higher. Like
Quite a bit.
Yes.
And that's why it was an easy day, because we trekked up to the top.
Hey, remember at one point Anna and I ran it up?
I do remember that. I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but that's okay.
Is this the place? Because remember where Sean was telling us that there was kind of a debate on whether or not this is the Atlantic Ocean versus a different ocean?
Yeah, so originally Cape Town, again, on the peninsula and this point, the Cape of Good Hope, was originally the spot where they designated the dividing line of the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean, of where they actually meet. But later on, officially, the scientists changed it to that other point in South Africa that's a little bit more east. That is the most southern point. It's more central of the country. And they have now officially made that the dividing line of what's the Atlantic, what's the Indian. But where we were was supposedly the original dividing line of where they said, okay, this is the divide of Atlantic to Indian Ocean.
Yeah, so to this day, people still kind of debate what body of water it actually is. Anyway, so that was that day. Super busy, super eventful. And
just day one. It's so jam-packed off the bat and already saw so much. It was great.
Exactly, yeah. So we went back to the hotel, we had a dinner, and then we went to bed because day 2 is going to be just as busy.
Technically day 4 on your trip, right? If you count all the travel.
That is
Exactly,
correct,
yeah.
but day 2 once we were there, I guess. But yes, day 4.
So we woke up, and on this day, we went to the Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens, resting at the foot of Table Mountain.
Yeah, it was so beautiful out there. And this just goes back to the vast amount of plant life and greenery. You're just not expecting it. Beautiful botanical gardens.
You know what I remember about this day? It was raining.
Yes, it was.
Rainy and cold in the morning.
Yes.
And then it cleared up, but it rained on us while we were at the gardens.
And this is a day that I realized that I wasn't 100% packed appropriately for this trip.
I wore shorts that day. I had like I had a little windbreaker type jacket, my North Face little light zip up, but I had shorts on that day.
Did you guys not check the weather?
We did check the weather, but we checked it at about, I mean, this is day 4, so we're checking about a week beforehand. And so the weather was a little different when we were checking it. So we weren't expecting this.
In fact, Kim, this day was supposed to be our first day, but because they knew that the weather was going to be the way it was when we were on day 2, they switched it so we could do Table Mountain
Day 1.
and still have a good view. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a good view if we did the days reversed.
Good view, or even be able to go up, because the moment it gets windy, they sometimes close the cable car as well. So they did rearrange our days on that. But we knew that the weather was going to kind of be like that. But it was only like it in the morning, because in the afternoon, it definitely warmed up a little bit and I was comfortable.
But even though it was cold and raining, the gardens were very beautiful. And I think that the rain and the cloud coverage added to the beauty, actually.
Yeah.
I remember Zeina even mentioning it looks like Jurassic Park meets Evolution.
Yes.
2 classic movies.
Exactly. Evolution, David Duchovny, Orlando Jones. I love that movie. But anyways, yeah, because, you know, they have fake dinosaurs out there, and it's an adult maze practically, because you can just get lost forever. There are so many different routes. There's so many different paths. You can take bridges over the area. And I remember at one point, Jamal really had to use the restroom. So he wanted to go back, and that kind of sucked because, you know, Brittanie and Jamal went back, and, you know, it's raining pretty hard too at this point. But Josh and Anna and I continued on. And once we rounded the corner, there was a bathroom area. And so we're like, oh man, Jamal gave up way too soon. So if you do continue on, they do have bathrooms in the park. So you don't have to be like Jamal and go back.
Good to know.
It happens.
We don't want any NSOT situations.
No, we don't. That's why I went back. Wasn't sure where they were going to be.
But it was so beautiful because you get all of the natural flora and fauna, and in the background of your pictures you have all of the mountains. So it was just very unique setting to take pictures in and to be in.
I mean, Jurassic Park right there.
So after the gardens, we actually started to do a tour of Cape Town itself. So they took us by some very famous landmarks and places. One of the first places that we passed was the Castle of Good Hope in the city center. And it was built in the year 1666 by the Dutch East India Trading Company. And this was one of the biggest industrial companies of the time, settled the area. And it's a beautiful Baroque building, and it's actually the oldest existing building still in South Africa. Another interesting fact about it is it used to be on the coast along the water, but it is now inland because of land reclamation. So they've actually built outwards, made land where it used to not be. So it's inland, but it used to be on the water.
They made man-made land?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just like, if you think about Dubai, they built the island, or in New York, they've added on to Lower Manhattan by putting rocks, things like that. That's called land reclamation, where they actually extend the water line out. So they did that in that area.
I think you really enjoyed downtown because you are a history fanatic, Mr. Historian, and you were pointing out all of the beautiful things to see, like St. George's Cathedral.
You were pointing them out, or the guide was?
Both.
Well, the guide pointed them out, but when I saw them, I knew what they were.
Also, just a little FYI, when we did go downtown, before we got off the bus, our guide, Sean, advised us not to take valuables with us because we were in an area where, it's safe, but this is also a highly pickpocketed area. So just beware of what you do take with you.
Good to know.
So tell us a little more about the downtown area, Mr. Historian.
So there's also the St. George's Cathedral, and it's the Anglican Diocese of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who was a Nobel Peace Laureate. And Desmond Tutu was the first Black Archbishop of South Africa. And he led numerous marches and campaigns to end the official practice of apartheid in South Africa, which was the segregation of the whites and the native Africans. So you could almost equate it to what happened here in the 1960s, civil rights movement, etc. But they were going through this even up until the 1990s.
Wow.
What's really interesting is Sean was even telling us, based on your class and skin color, it's going to determine the areas where you are living there in Cape Town, which I found really...
Still to this day?
It's definitely integrated, but yes, still to this day, because even if you look at the situation here in America...
I was just going to say, it's not that different
Yeah,
from
to an
here.
extent, we're still divided in terms of where people live based on socioeconomic class, based on skin color. So it's not official, but just people are stuck in certain demographics, and that's where they still live and reside within the city.
Yeah, in
Okay.
fact, we actually went by a portion of the town called the Malay Quarter, and there was this guy, and his name was Jan de Wall, and he bought a block of land, and he built rental houses that he leased to the slaves on this land. So they were all white houses originally. He bought them, they were all white, they all looked the same, and now all of the houses are very brightly colored, and
Oh,
so
nice.
it kind of represents that they have freedom and that they can do what they want with these houses. So we did pass that quarter, and the term Malay comes from slaves were originally imported from Malaysia and Indonesia. So they called that area the Malay area.
Another interesting stop that they took us to on the tour was the Company Gardens. And this is a big park that they have in downtown Cape Town. And originally this park was created in the 1650s. And originally it was an area where they had fertile ground to grow crops, but now they've turned it into a park. And they have a big monument of Cecil John Rhodes, who was a prominent figure of the colonization of Africa. So if you've ever heard the terms, they're a Rhodes Scholar, or before Zimbabwe became Zimbabwe, it was called Rhodesia. It was named after Cecil John Rhodes. And they had a big statue. And I remember our tour guide, Sean, telling us, he said, some people are still obviously offended by seeing this here, don't like it because of what they feel it represents. And they showed on the back of his leg, there was a big cut from a chainsaw or a type of saw where some people went into the park and tried to cut it down, but obviously it hasn't been removed or anything. And I thought that was just really unique. And it just shows a lot of the history of South Africa itself. It's really unique to see.
Wasn't there someplace downtown that we went and Sean was saying that this is where Nelson Mandela had made a speech or something after he got released from prison?
I believe it was one of the churches that we're talking about.
We did
Yes.
see that.
Yeah, and it was, it's interesting because Sean is from South Africa. So he's talking about, when he was a teenager and just remembering seeing that iconic moment of after he was released.
What else did you guys do on this day?
We went to the Natural History Museum.
Exciting.
It was actually really exciting. It was South Africa's Natural History Museum. So
Rhinos?
yeah, they had taxidermied rhinos or fake rhinos, lions, other stuff. It was included. We didn't have a lot of time in there, maybe 30, 45 minutes, but they just took us in there. It's in the downtown area. So that was really fun to go do and see. But on a lot of Gate1 tours, sometimes they will take you to places. I know we mentioned when we talked about China just as well, how Gate1 will sometimes take you to specific places or businesses. And in China, they took us to the jade shop and the pearl shop. Well, here they took us to Szymanski, which is a diamond jeweler. And the diamond industry is really big in South Africa. And again, they do the same thing in China. Jade, pearls, big in China. So they incorporate things that are important to the history and the culture on where they take you. So we did go to Szymanski. They gave us a tour of the diamond factory, talked about the history of the diamond industry in South Africa, how it's evolved, etc. And this is where we picked up some jewelry for Brittanie, and then Zeina felt left out and had to pick some up for herself.
Well, okay. So this is Tanzanite, right? And
Tanzanite is rarer than diamonds, by the way. but not as
Here.
expensive as diamonds, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
But we picked up some tanzanite for Brittany, and then Zeina got some as well.
Because I think tanzanite can only come from Tanzania. So anyways, they had this beautiful necklace. And I tried it on and I loved it. I loved the cut. I loved the way that they stuck it in its frame. So it's designed to kind of jiggle and emit light. And it was
When
just
it shines on the light because it moves.
Exactly. So I loved it. And then I jumped on my internet to see what type of healing properties that tanzanite has. And I really liked it, but I thought it was a little pricey. So I took it off. Brittany immediately said, "Can I try it on?" And it's like all of a sudden my heart just sinks a little bit. And then as soon as Brittany has it around her neck, it looks so beautiful. And she says, "I'll take it." And then that's when I realized I want that tanzanite necklace.
You had some FOMO.
I did.
Sisters.
As soon as she said I want it, the property just like skyrocketed and I wanted it too.
Did
or the
they
value.
have 2 of them?
They
Luckily,
happened
they did.
to have 2 of them. So it was one of those moments where I felt like, oh my gosh, I have a little sister now when Zeina's not my little sister because she wants exactly what I have.
That's happened more than once, right? The purse.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Zeina sees something on Brittany, then realizes how good it is, and then wants it herself.
So you got necklace. You guys got earrings too, right?
Not
Yeah,
at this
but not at this
place.
location. But
okay.
when we were at Szymanski, this was the end of our tour for the day, and our tour guide gave us the option. He said, you can either stay behind after Szymanski, we're at the Victoria Albert waterfront, which we'll talk about here in just a second, or you could come back to the hotel and just call it a night, go back out on your own whenever you want to. So the entire tour had left at that point, and we stayed behind as we were buying it. And this is a big jewelry shop. So if you think about, going to Los Angeles and high-end shopping, they bring out champagne, cocktails to cater for you. So when we bought, they brought out good liquor for us. They had a
Before we
little
even
bar
bought.
area. So so we were sampling on drinks.
It's amazing.
And
One of my favorite things to do is drink champagne while shopping. I love going into stores like that.
They actually brought it out before we purchased.
Well,
'Cause
they
remember,
brought
this
it
is
for
for everyone.
They brought it
buttering you up.
they brought it for everybody, which was the cheap stuff. But once we bought, then they brought out the high-end alcohol.
Dom Perignon?
And you know
not
what we
Dom Perignon.
did?
We had, Josh, Anna, and I had high-end whiskey. I forgot what the girls had. Probably some wine, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was
or
champagne.
Yeah.
So we sat there and we drank it. And then we were like, let's ask if we can have another one. So we totally asked if we can have another one. And they're like, absolutely. So Kim,
Of course.
you were missed. That was like 3 rounds right
Damn it.
there.
I would have bought jewelry just for the alcohol.
Well, you didn't have to. Josh and Anna didn't buy any, and yet they
And they
got
got the
some too.
perks,
So
huh?
Yeah, because they were with us.
So after our stint in Szymanski and some jewelry shopping, it is on the Victoria and Albert waterfront, which is a big mall and shop area along the water in Cape Town. So much stuff to eat, so much to do, and really, really awesome. If you're going to Cape Town, it's definitely a must check out area.
And during this time, this is when we learned, like, we are in Africa and it is so different. Like, they are on their own schedule. So you can order something kind of like when we were in Peru, and you might get your entree or app first, and then it might take 20 minutes later for Zeina to get hers. They're on their own like schedule and itinerary. And then also we were out for lunch. Don't remember where we were, but Jamal and I order something off the menu and I tell him what I want, and he comes out probably 30 minutes later and he puts down something that is not what I ordered. And I ask him, like, I don't believe this is what I ordered. And he says to me, well, then you ordered wrong because this is what you ordered.
Oh.
And he
Just straight up blunt on that. Like, and what's really funny is
What?
our tour
There are
guide.
no negotiations.
Our tour guide even told us, this isn't America. You're not going to be able to fight things. People move a lot slower here. If something's wrong, like, it's not going to be fixed. You can't send stuff back. And he told us that the first morning of orientation, just as kind of like, understand this. And wouldn't you know, the very next day it happened. We ordered something and I know the waiter took it wrong. I know exactly what Brittany and I ordered, and he brought out the wrong thing.
Do you know what you ordered compared to what you got?
I don't remember.
Was it very different?
It's been so long now that I don't remember. All I remember is the general gist of he totally brought out the complete wrong order.
Yeah, so it was like a tapas thing. Let's say I ordered chicken, but he brought out lamb or something like that.
Oh, God. I don't think I would do very well there.
I was about to say, Kim, if you accidentally get the fish, you're going to be stuck stuck with fish.
So we came up with the TIA, but I must say that was what we started referencing to the trip. TIA, this is Africa.
Is Africa.
But I'm not going to lie, I stole that from the Leonardo DiCaprio movie Blood Diamonds, which takes place in Africa, and he tells somebody TIA, this is Africa. So I kind of took it from that.
Of course it's a movie quote.
And they do have a Ferris wheel downtown, and no one wanted to ride it except for Anna. So Anna and I did ride the Ferris wheel, and we were up in the air when Jamal and Brittanie ordered wrong. So anyways, when you are up there, it is really nice views. You can see like a football stadium and just, the water from up above.
Was it a Ferris wheel where your feet are dangling, or were you in a cart?
No, it was an enclosed Ferris wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was an enclosed Ferris wheel. So that summed up our day 4. Day 5, next day was a free day. So we
Free day!
Free day!
So we got the option to either do whatever we wanted to do, or Gate 1 had 2 separate tours that you could do, but they were paid option tours. And the 2 options that they did have was 1, cage diving with great whites.
Boo!
What do you mean, boo?
Says the girl that didn't even go on this trip.
We were all so excited because in South Africa, this is, again, if you watch any nature documentaries, Shark Week, you'll see where great whites actually jump out of the water to catch the seals. They shoot them up in the air. This happens in South Africa in the area that we were at, and this is where we were going to be going. Or they do have a very famous wine country area, so you could do wine tasting, or again, just do something on your own.
I remember when I was considering going on this trip, I was reviewing the itinerary over and over and over, and I kept thinking the wine tasting is absolutely what I would do if I was on this day. I wanted the wine tasting.
I wish we could have done that. Because on Gate 1, after your first real day, not like your first day when you get there, but your first real day, they do like a group dinner. And I remember we were sitting there and we were talking to Sean about the great white cage diving. And I asked him, what do you think about it? And he gave us a look that let us know that it like isn't the best option.
He said no comment.
Yeah.
It says all you need to know with that, no comment.
He gave us what we needed to know without speaking it.
But let's get to that day. So clearly we did the cage diving with the great whites. I think we all who went wanted to do it.
There's no fucking way I would have gone in a damn cage with potential great whites.
You know
you
what
guys are crazy.
My favorite thing was Jamal and Brittanie were talking to you about whether or not Zeina's going to be a chicken and back out. And Kim knows me so well. And she made the comment to Jamal and Brittanie that there's no way Zeina's going to back out. She paid for it.
Yeah. So anyway, we did the great whites. They woke us up early in the morning to take us because we had a 2.5 hour drive somewhere a little bit more east to go to that specific area. We went to the city of Gansbaai. I apologize for my terrible accent for it, but it's called Gansbaai.
At least you tried.
Yes, I tried. And we got there. They gave us a brief orientation. And this is where and when we finally found out why Sean gave us the clue that it might not be all that it's hyped up to be. This area is called Shark Alley. It's pretty much guaranteed that you will always see sharks. They always do the nature documentaries there because
like
it is Shark Alley. It's always filmed there.
Yeah,
always
Shark Week
filmed
is
there.
always filmed in like parts of Shark Alley.
Literally a month and a half before we went, there was a pod of orcas or killer whales, whatever you prefer, who came, and they have been killing the great whites, biting their livers out and killing them. And
so the great whites were like washing up on the shore without a liver.
Great whites are very intuitive animals, and they know that the orcas are attacking them and killing them. So they have completely vacated the area within the last month and a half before we got there. So they tell us this finally at our orientation. They're like, usually it's nature, we can't guarantee, but 99% of the time we go out there is a shark sighting. The last month and a half, it's up in the air. So they gave us that forewarning, but only when we were there at orientation for it.
Did you guys pre-book this?
We did.
We did.
So in trip, you had no possibility to switch it if you had wanted to?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think Josh and Anna and Jamal would have budged on it anyways.
Had you known about the killer whale situation days before, may you have considered switching?
I may have considered switching, but this was a bucket list item for me to do cage diving with great whites. Yeah, I really wanted to do it. Now that I know about it, in hindsight, yeah, we should have done the wine tasting. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we get out onto the water and they chumming up the water. They throw dead fish, guts out there to try to attract the sharks. And as we were actually getting out to get on the boat, boat, the earlier morning tour was coming back, and we had asked them if they saw any sharks, and several people responded, yes, we saw one. I didn't know if it was a great white or another shark, but they at least said we saw one, which gave me super, super good hope. And I was excited. So we get out there. They chum the water and they're like, okay, well, there's no sightings of sharks. You know, you could either get in the cage now or just kind of wait and see.
I don't think they told us to get in if they wanted to. I think you and Anna were super eager and then they jumped. You guys.
Well, they said you can get in, but no one was getting in because sharks weren't there. And I said, shit, I've paid
in the cage?
Yeah. I was like, shit, I've paid for this. I want to be in the water because this is pretty much, well, we had wetsuits on, but even with the wetsuit, it was cold.
Wow. That's saying a lot for you, Jamal.
But I said, I said, fuck this. I paid for it. I'm getting in the water. I said, I don't care if there's sharks. Like, I want to say, like, I've been cage diving. If I see them, that's clearly going to be the plus, but it was a matter of point, like, I'm getting in. So Anna and I were the only ones in the water because Brittanie didn't want to get in. Zeina didn't want to get in.
I was feeling
Josh
sick.
didn't want to get in. And so
were you both in the same cage?
Yeah. It's a big cage and
it's a rectangle cage.
Yeah, and maybe 8 people can line up, side by side in it. But me and her were the only ones in it for the first 30-40 minutes, and we were just chilling in the water.
And you have like an air tank, or how are you
No air
breathing?
tank, face mask, snorkel.
Okay.
Pretty much.
They don't put the cage all the way down. So if Jamal and Anna are in the cage, their heads are above the water and then they have to, And in fact,
so how are you going to see if a shark's coming?
Because you could go under.
So the way that they see if a shark's coming is because they're in this big cage, the top 1 to 2 feet is out of the water and the rest is in the water. So they can poke their heads down with their face mask on and see if a shark's coming.
And then when a shark is there,
they can stay under. They can hold the bars to stay under.
Okay.
Because they have
then your hands are on the bars and the shark can bite your hand.
They have bars in the inside of it, almost like a bar stool. You know, like imagine sitting at a bar and you have a stool to rest your feet. Well, they have a bar on the inside to hold your feet. Your feet will hold you from rising up on that bar. But yes, you can put it, on the outside to hold as well. But the cage itself is, 8 to 10 feet tall. So a couple feet are out, but for the most part, you have your snorkel and you just push yourself and hold yourself under to see the sharks if they come.
Now, before we went, Sean told us, make sure that you have something to wear under the wetsuit. And I've never been in a wetsuit before, so I realized exactly what he meant. So make sure you have a bathing suit or just something that you can have because you don't want that wetsuit touching your body directly. And when you do get it all the way up, you cannot breathe. It is...
Yeah, I had never been in a wetsuit before, and it just really constricts your breathing because it's really tight around you, obviously, so water doesn't get in. And not only could I not breathe, but when I had to pee later, I couldn't get out of it by myself, and I had to ask a crew member to unzip me.
You had a crew member undress me
and help me pull the top portion off so I can pull it down to pee.
Yeah, so I was not, I don't know what it was. I was not feeling well that morning. I thought for a second that it was seasickness, and I thought that was so weird because I don't get seasick. So later on, it turns out that I ended up catching a little bit of a cold, and this is where it was ramping up out there, but it was freezing out there. I wasn't even in the water. I was just in the wetsuit. And because I was feeling so nauseous, I went to the front of the boat and they gave me a blanket and I was able to lay down there at the front. And Brittanie came and joined me at some point. And so Brittanie and I both cuddled under the blanket together. And as we're lying there looking up, you see just a flock of birds fluttering above you because they see the chum in the water. They smell the chum in the water. So all these birds are above us, and there we are under the open sky. I'm feeling sick, and Brittanie and I are saying the only thing that can make this worse is if one of the birds shit on us. And sure enough,
one of the birds shat on us.
You didn't know getting shit on by a bird is good luck?
Is it? Okay, well,
where did it land?
It was on the blanket, but it's still, it wasn't on our hair or on our face or anything like that, but it still shit on us. And then one of the crew members, bless her heart, she got sick too, but I wasn't seasick. I was just actual sick, but she was getting seasick. So she came over to check on us, and then she had a jar full of mints. And so she offered us a mint. And now I didn't know that mints help with your stomach and helps calm your stomach.
Oh, that's such a good tip for seasickness.
Yes. So mint. So when she offered it to me, I looked at her confused and I said, is this for in case I throw up? And she said, no. This will help you with your stomach to help make your stomach feel better. So
although we did not see any sharks that day, we did see a lot of seals. whites. We went to an island and there was a ton of seals, probably because they're not being eaten by the great whites because there's no great whites.
They're
in the
probably
area.
happy now. They're like, no predator to eat me. I'm just going to lounge here on these rocks and not even care.
Now, how long were we out there, though, waiting for sharks?
I would say we were out there at least a good two and a half hours
at
for
least.
sure.
Okay.
So unfortunately, no shark sightings. I need to go back. Hopefully they come back to the area. If not, the only other place I could think of is just go south of the border here to Mexico because they have cage diving here in Baja, California and Mexico. But it was just a bucket list item I wanted to do. I really do want to go back.
Another
and hopefully
reason to
see
go
it.
back.
Yes, another reason to go back. So we had the long drive back, but as you heard from Zeina, just in general, she wasn't feeling good that day. So when we got back, dinner was not included that night with Gate 1. So Brittanie, Josh, Anna, and I, we walked back to the Victoria and Albert waterfront or VA waterfront, and we had dinner that night, and that wrapped up day 5 for us.
Excellent. Tell me about day 6.
So we actually left Cape Town and we flew to Durban. And from Durban, we drove to St. Lucia. I was really excited for this day because this was the first day that we were going to see real animals. We were supposed to see hippos and crocodiles in the afternoon. And I was so excited.
Yeah, so Durban is a major city on the eastern coast of South Africa. Cape Town, again, is on the western side of South Africa. So from Durban, as Brittanie said, we drove to St. Lucia, and on the itinerary for that night was an evening river cruise that took us on the water, and that's where we got to see the hippopotamuses, the crocodiles. So that was the first sighting of African animals. But before we went out there, we were excited at the hotel because at the hotel, you know, in foreign countries, usually beer is very inexpensive. Josh, Anna, and I started sipping on some dollar beers. It was called
Dollar beers?
It was called Black Label, and these are just typical lager beers, but they're like 6.5%, like IPA level. So
Wow.
you're getting a real good buzz on the real cheap. So we definitely had some booze before we got on to the river cruise that night.
Proud of you for that.
You should be, because it continued on the cruise.
On the cruise, we were at the St. Lucia estuary, and Jamal and Josh and Anna, they just kept continuing to booze.
What about you, Brittanie?
It was 3 for $5, by the way. 3 beers for $5. What a steal on a tour boat.
What a deal. I mean, how can you turn that down?
You don't get that
gosh.
in the United States.
And we were there for sunset, so
Oh, pretty.
it was very pretty. I've never seen hippopotami in the wild like that before.
Yeah, I said hippopotamuses earlier. Thank you for using the correct pronunciation. It's hippopotami for the plural.
Hippopotami.
Did not know that.
Hippopotami.
Like octopi. It's not octopuses, it's octopi. Hippopotami.
Normally I say hippos.
I love hippos.
They are huge.
And dangerous. Deadly.
And
I mean, if you can
They're
just see
cute.
them yawn, like that's an
I've
incredible
seen them in
thing.
the zoo. I love them.
yeah, it's much more intense when they're out there in the wild. Like they're opening their mouths at each other. They are vicious towards each other.
How many did you guys see?
There were hundreds.
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
Wow.
Not an exaggeration. Hundreds.
And they were by the crocodiles too?
Yeah.
Coexisting?
I mean, you can see in nature documentaries sometimes they'll fight, but for the most part, we didn't see any aggressive action towards each other. They were coexisting, you know, in
Wow.
the area.
It was cool. I mean, just to go by on the boat and you see their eyes like peeping out from under the water, and you just know that there's like a herd of hippos there waiting
That
to
is so
jump out of the
cool.
water.
Yeah, and you know, you usually see hippos, they're in the water, under the water, and that's usually where they spend most of their day and time. But they're vegetarian, so they have to leave the water to go and find food. So at one point, we did see a pair of hippopotami come walking back, which was really cool because, you know, even in the zoo and in nature, you see the majority of them in the water just kind of floating. It was really unique to see that pair coming and walking on land. I've never seen hippopotami on land before.
And I could be mistaken, but I remember them telling us that the hippopotami's skin is very, very sensitive. And so they often get in the water and roll in the mud to protect their skin. And so in the dusking hours or early morning hours when the sun's not very hot, they'll go out onto land to eat. And then during the hot day, they'll get in the water to cool down and protect their skin.
Such smart animals.
They are.
I mean, wow.
But this spot right here was the only location on our trip where we couldn't drink the water. And again, it was because of them renovating or doing something to the well. However, there is a great story. You can't count on the Travel Squad podcast unless we talk about the bathroom. Tell us about the bathroom in this hotel.
Yeah, Yes. Well, real quickly though, for the water, because you couldn't drink the sink water, they did give you bottles of water in the room. But yes, when you got into the room, it was like a love suite for you.
Was it a heart-shaped bed?
I mean, no, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. So you enter in and there's the bed, and then you go to the right and that's where the bathroom is. And there's no door on the bathroom. You just go around the corner and there's the sink and there's the toilet and there's the shower, just like no privacy. And so I kind of like laughed to myself thinking, I wonder if Kim was here with me, which by the way, I had a big bed.
Just one though?
Just one bed. So we would have had to share it, but still it was a pretty big bed. So we would have had enough space on our own sides. But getting ready, the lighting was shit in there. It was really bad lighting, but
Bad lighting.
exactly. I figure you would care about that because
disapprove.
I did. I remember leaving the next day when we woke up telling Brittany that the lighting was bad, and I was kind of like nervous about my makeup, but that's okay. I winged it regardless. But just there's no privacy.
Yeah, so around the toilet, there is a small door. So all of the sounds you make when going to the bathroom, whoever
All the
you're
smells
all the-
you make.
all the
Yeah,
smells
so they-
you make.
They have like a little glass door, a glass framing around it. But like Brittany said, it doesn't touch to the floor. It doesn't touch to the ceiling. So it's just a sectioned off area, but all the scents will waft up and
Wonderful.
permeate the area.
So if you aren't real close and comfortable with who you're traveling with, you'll get to know each other on a very personal level during that hotel stay.
Extra intimate. That's why
I
Zeina
mean,
said a love
that's
suite.
typically how travel goes in general. You really get to know the person you're traveling with, regardless if there's doors on the bathroom or not.
There's no shame at that point.
You know-
with travel companions.
The bathroom, the situation made me laugh because I thought, you know what, this is nothing that Kim and I haven't experienced before. We've been up and close in each other's
We've shared
business.
each other's toothbrushes.
You can't get any closer than that. So I just kind of laughed because there were two girls on the trip that were from LA. One was Kim, and then the other one was the girl that she was with. And so when we were in those kinds of situations, I laughed because I thought, if Kim was here, this would be our situation. And I wonder how Jackie and Kim are faring right now.
So moving on to day 7, which is Zeina's birthday.
Happy birthday, Zeina.
Feliz Navidad, Zeina.
Gracias. It's so funny because I never thought that I would be celebrating my 33rd birthday in eSwatini.
And what did we do?
Well, part of it was in South Africa. The last half was going to be in eSwatini, Swaziland.
There you go. I double countryed my birthday.
But what did we do first?
We went on our first safari.
Woohoo!
Like land safari.
Ooh, safari.
Yes, it was so exciting.
Big, big, big. I can't stress it enough. Big bucket list item here for me to
Jamal's
go on a South African safari.
a big fan of big cats.
I love big cats.
Jamal cried.
I love big cats. Yeah, I did. I'm not even afraid to admit it. I'll tell you all about that here in a second. So
Where did we go?
we were still in South Africa, and we went to this is going to be tough for me to pronounce, so I apologize for butchering it. It's going to be the Hluhluwe-Imfolozi Game Reserve. And again,
Good job.
my terrible pronunciation, so I apologize for that.
If you saw
But-
how this was spelled, you would understand the pronunciation
Yeah.
difficulties.
Very, very difficult to pronounce.
It's from the Zulu language.
Yes, it is. And this game reserve is famous for their rhinoceros population.
And they don't dehorn their rhinos here either. So
Yeah, a lot of game reserves will dehorn the rhinos to prevent poaching. This is one of the few in Africa that does not. So you get to see the rhinos in all their glory here. And so we started off in the morning early with this game drive. And I knew it was going to be a good day in general. I was so excited, but no exaggeration. Within the first 5 minutes of being on the safari Jeep and in there, we come across a beautiful big rhino, like right on the road. And this is where I got a little bit teary-eyed. I'm not even afraid to admit it. It was, like I said, bucket list item for me, and actually seen a rhino in person and experience an African safari, which is something I've always wanted to do. It was just like the culmination of all of that. And it was just a really big, intense moment for me.
And it was really close to us. So although our tour group was like in the 30s, we were broken up into Jeeps, and the Jeeps held 9 people each. So
Was it open?
It was open, and we drove right up to this rhino. We were probably 5 to 10 feet from it. We were super close.
Wow.
Now, one of the tips that they give us is to wear neutral clothing. I didn't necessarily know why. And then Jamal was like trying to scare me. And he said, you can't wear any of your bright clothes because they're going to think that you are a bloodied animal and they're going to go after you.
Yeah.
Is that the truth?
That's what Jamal told me.
Part of that is actually truthful to an extent. You want to wear colors that will actually blend you into the environment, because colors that aren't natural to there, they'll see it and kind of steer away from it because they're just not used
They'll
to
be
it.
startled by it.
So yeah, on top of that, yes, if you do wear red and it's from far away and all big predator animals see is a shade of red, they may expect it to be like, oh, this is a bloodied or wounded animal. So I mean, I guess that could draw somebody. But yes, in general, you want to wear a neutral color. But beyond seeing the rhinos right off the bat, we saw several right from the get-go. What else did we see, Brittany?
So we saw 2 mama lions, and we couldn't see what they were trying to hunt, but we could hear them. And they were hunting with their 3 baby cubs.
Aww.
And the 3 baby cubs, when our Jeep was stopped in front of them, came really, really close to our Jeep and just sat there and was just kind of observing us for a while.
The baby cubs were?
Yeah, they were all marching like 3 in a line, and you could hear them. I don't want to call them little roars because they weren't roars, but they were making their little cub noises or whatever they do. And it was just so cute because they were curious from us while their moms were out there hunting. We couldn't see what they were hunting, but you could see them off in the distance and looking at something in the bush.
And so the cubs got really close, closer than I was expecting them to. And it was like, we got to see the rhinos. And then right after that, we got to see the lions. And then we're in our Jeep and we see a herd of elephants. And kind of like when we were in Peru, where there was the alpaca traffic jam, we had the same thing happen where we were stopped because the African elephants were crossing the roads and we couldn't do anything about it. They were just a big herd stopping the traffic.
Elephants are never alone. When they are with another elephant, there's like, seriously,
They're all in a herd.
oh my gosh, yeah. So you're waiting like several minutes for like the entire crossing to go. It's amazing.
And again, it's right in front of us. Like, you can't reach out and touch them, but it feels like you could. You know, they're that close to you.
And then we saw Cape Buffalo just as well. We saw a giraffe. We saw zebras. So we saw a lot of big game animals. I really wanted to see a leopard as well, going back to my big cat fascination. But unfortunately, no leopards were sighted. But the highlight for me, other than seeing the rhino right away, is we were the only Jeep safari vehicle that got to see what we're about to talk about next. And we were making our rounds through the reserve, and we came across a watering hole. And the watering hole had at least 15 rhinos in there, just all bathing, rolling around in the mud, from babies to adults. And I did catch on film, which was really exciting. There were 2 rhinos that weren't in the water yet, and they were crossing the road that we were on. And then one of the rhinos, it was no exaggeration, 5 to 6 feet away from us. And then all of a sudden it decided to start charging the vehicle that was behind us, maybe like 50 feet back, and the other vehicle had to reverse, and then it just chilled and then came back to the water. So I got to see a rhino charge. It was just amazing.
I would have been so scared if I was in that Jeep.
And
It
not
was
only-
going hardcore.
Jamal, Zeina, and I were the back row of the Jeep. So we were looking directly out to this rhino and we're watching it start to charge the other vehicle and them having to back up. We're like, oh shit, we're right here. We're like, if it turns around and charges us, we would be the ones hit.
Oh my God.
And our driver was like, yeah, you know, like that rhino's no joke. Even though they're in a car, that rhino would fuck that car up.
Well, it was really cool. And going back to what Brittany was saying, they don't dehorn the rhinos at this reserve area. So this rhino had, no exaggeration, a 4-foot horn. It's just beautiful, curved, arched, pointy. It was really cool to see. And at the watering hole too, there were zebras in the background, and it was just so amazing.
This is Africa.
Yeah, TIA. Like, that was Africa.
Wow.
And while we were there, they did stop the tour so we can eat breakfast in the middle of the park. So they had an area set up specifically for that, but still it's crazy because wildlife is all around you. So they had the bathroom, so you can go to the bathroom, you could wash your hands and whatnot. And I remember at one point when I was washing my hands, Jackie, another girl on the tour who was with Kim, not to be confused with our Kim, she looked at me and she's like, hey, happy birthday. This is such an amazing experience for you. Like, how cool is it that you get to see all of these animals? Because she was in our car. So she's like, how cool is it that you get to see all of these animals on your birthday? birthday. And I didn't really think about it prior to, but once she said that, I was like, wow, this is like really, really, really cool.
Yeah, we
So-
saw 4 of the 5 big game of Africa on your birthday.
Did we talk about the big 5?
Yeah, so the big 5 is a general term that they use to describe animals on a safari.
Let me guess. Rhinos, lions, zebras,
No.
elephants.
Elephants?
2 more.
Whoa, hippos.
No, I'll help you out. The other one is going to be Cape buffalo and a leopard.
Okay.
And they get their name, the Big 5. It's more a touristy draw term now, but the reason for it is back in the day, the most dangerous animals to hunt in the bush or be in the bush around in terms of them potentially, killing you. Yes, hippos kill a lot of people too, but that's if you're in the water being stupid. But like just being on land, those animals are the deadliest in terms of they'll come up behind you out of nowhere, attack you, etc. So it's a more industry term now, but we got to see 4 out of the 5. The only one that we missed again was the leopard. But after the amazing safari, we continued on to Swaziland or eSwatini. The term is interchangeable to describe the country.
But it is legally recognized right now as eSwatini.
Correct. And so going to a whole new country. So when we were at the border, we had to get out of the bus, had to go through customs all over again. So we made our way to Swaziland and we checked into the hotel. And this was actually one of the coolest hotels that we were at. They had a beautiful pool. They had a big chessboard with chess pieces. We got to play, but we had Zeina's birthday dinner at the hotel.
Yes. So just a quick squad tip for you. Do not insult the king of Swaziland. That's a big no-no, because if you do, they will arrest you. It was really interesting because the king has how many wives?
He has like 30-something wives.
That's also the same in Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
They take their
insult-
king seriously.
Yeah. You can't insult the king or the king's mama. That's no exaggeration. because
No yo mama jokes there.
Because when the photo of the king is up, there is a photo of the king's mother as well. Her photo frame is slightly below his because he has more seniority, but it's almost like a dual rulership, if you will, but
really
not at the same time.
appreciate that, how much they appreciate mothers and women. That's nice. I like that.
And so the king can have as many wives as he wants, but he has to be able to provide for each one. So every single wife has her own house and they're completely taken care of. And then you always know who the king is with because you'll see all of his armed cars outside. So I think Sean was talking about, I forgot which number wife is his favorite, but that's the one that he's usually at. So everyone speculates that she's his favorite. So anyways, the hotel, it was on a really nice terraced area. It was super beautiful. Huge room, Kim. You were missed. Lots of space there. So anyways, we were playing the life-size chess, chit-chatting with Sean, and then we went to dinner. And at dinner, I made the comment that, do you think that if we tell them that it's my birthday, that they will bring out free dessert? And Jamal's all, Zeina, we're in Africa. They're not going to do that here. So we order a dessert to share. And then after they bring it out, we make the comment that it's my birthday. And then they come out with a free dessert and the entire staff starts singing happy birthday to me. But not only the staff, but there were other people that were, and not from Gate 1, but other people who were visiting that joined in with the staff singing. And then they were saying happy birthday. And even the next day at breakfast, because they hooked it up with the breakfast buffet on Gate 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there were people who were in the dining room that night when that were singing happy birthday, that when I was getting breakfast the next day, they were like, oh, birthday girl, happy birthday, happy birthday. And it was so fucking nice.
Yeah, they brought you out the little cake. They sang to you in English and in their native language too. So that was really cool. And beyond Zeina's birthday celebration, one thing that I really enjoyed about this hotel, and this goes back to trying local cuisine, is we got to eat a lot of local game meat. So for dinner, I ordered a trio of springbok, kudu, and wildebeest. So all,
Gross.
No, delicious. All like venison type animals, and it was really, really good.
Which one was your favorite? Wasn't it the kudu?
I don't really remember, actually. I think it may have even been the wildebeest or the springbok. I mean,
Must not have left a very good impression.
oh, I don't remember because, they brought it out and said which one was which, but at the same time, it's tough to remember. But nonetheless, worth trying, really, really good.
And Jamal loves trying all this local cuisine, and he tries to order a different type of local cuisine. You guys are going to have to stay tuned for that next episode when we talk about what Jamal tries to order next.
That's such a good one.
You know what? I
can't wait.
wish they had it on the menu. I can't wait to get to that. But this concludes our first half of our Africa adventure. Anyone have anything else they want to say about this portion of Africa that
You guys
we discussed?
This is just such an amazing episode. This is such an amazing place to travel to, and I can't wait to continue it next week.
This is only the first half.
We have more coming at you.
We're
Yes,
barely
we
even
do.
scratching the surface.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. To keep the adventures going, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Travel Squad Podcast. Please send in your questions of the week, make my day, and tag us in your adventures on Instagram as well.
And if you found this information on this episode to be useful, or if you thought that we were just plain funny, please share it with a friend that would enjoy it too.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for new episodes.
And don't even think about unpacking because we are continuing our African journey next week.
TIA.
Bye, everyone.
Hashtag Tia.
Bye.
Bye.